Hey everyone, this is Christian Heimel, host of Press Row. Thanks so much for listening to the following broadcast, courtesy of Public House Media.
I'm the Greg.
And I am Dave Show.
We host the Greg and Dave Show on Public House Media.
Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out our show, The Greg and Dave Show, where we talk about strange, bizarre, and sometimes just downright quirky news stories that you may not have heard about.
A new show comes out every Wednesday. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes. And hey, thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Throughout history, the course of sports has been shaped by one thing: the fans.
From the moments you never dreamed of,
has saved the USA's life in this World Cup.
Paul, the runner, loose ball, it's good. Gonzaga, the slipper still fits.
To the moments that still give you nightmares.
Behind the bag, it gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
He's in. Patriots win the Super Bowl. Brady has his fifth.
through the good and the bad, fans have helped change the games we watch and the players we love.
They may not be the most logical people.
You are a factory of sadness. I'll see you Sunday.
But they know their teams better than anybody.
They'll blow in the ninth.
You may not always see them, but you know where to find them.
After all, there's nothing quite like the view from the cheap seats.
Broadcasting as part of the Public House Media Network.
Grab a chair and enjoy all there is in
The cheap seats.
Good morning and welcome to the next edition of The Cheap Seats. I am Baxter Colburn, filling in for Matt Coyne alongside Jake Holmes. Welcome to the program. Good morning to you, Mr. Holmes. How are you today, sir?
Oh, good morning, Baxter. How are you?
I'm doing well. The world as a whole just keeps spinning, and we as sports fans just try to hold on for the ride. Hopefully you and I will stay faithful to the cheap seats and not find ourselves for some other offshoot podcast because, you know, we're just chasing awards or something like that. Like, come on. Like, who would ever, like, leave a good thing for a worse thing? I don't know.
You're absolutely right.
But what do we know, right? We're just a couple of guys here just sitting up in the highest of highs, just, you know, trying to figure things out. But either way, we've got some good stuff in store for you today here on The Cheap Seats. A quick reminder, the show is presented by Squadcast.fm. It's one of the greatest ways to do podcasting with your friends or in a professional setting remotely. All you got to do is sign up on their website, squadcast.fm, and we are here on the Public House Media Network. Check them out by going to thephmedia.com or head over to their Facebook page to search for Public House Media. Well, Jake, we've got a whole slew of things that we're looking at this week. We've got some World Cup action, the MLB All-Star battles, just looking at one of those teams are finally starting to shape up. We've got a good segment later on that I'm excited for. We're going to play a game called Who Said It, where you and I are going to have 3 quotes for each other from this last week's general news, and we are just going to read each other the quote and got to figure out what the heck or who the heck was saying it, because someone's always saying something that you kind of look at, you know, a person, you're like, what? Was that what they said? So we're looking forward to that. And then finally, we're going to be each revealing our list for the 5 NFL offensive players that we feel need to have a good season in 2018. Otherwise, there may be some change of address forms that need to be filed after the end of the season, or maybe earlier, depending on how their season starts out. But before we jump into all of that, of course, we want to remind you to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, the Google Podcast app that just recently came out, iHeartRadio, and wherever you get your podcasts. And we start the show, as we always do, Jake, with quick headlines, and I want to turn it over to you because you have some interesting things you want to hit on right off the bat today.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost is the continuous vandalism of LeBron James's mural in Los Angeles. It's got, you know, it's got his face, and he's wearing the Laker jersey. It even shows like his cool tattoos. It says the King of LA.
Oh,
and
boy.
It's been vandalized so many times. Finally, they just painted over it because they're sick of the vandals in all of that. So obviously, this is a case of people not getting over Kobe or LeBron, the Kobe or LeBron debate. So I want to know how you feel about this, Baxter. What's your opinions on the way that that way LA fans are acting right now?
I feel like this would kind of be the case anywhere. Think about it. If LeBron had gone to Chicago, and people were painting these murals of him saying, we're the greatest of all time or any of that stuff on city walls, I'm sure MJ fans would be losing their mind right now as well, too. I think that's kind of the case. I mean, if people had been painting, this is kind of an extreme example, but even like when Jimmy Garoppolo went to the Patriots, or even went to the 49ers, if they were spraying murals of him saying he was the best quarterback of all time against Steve Young, Joe Montana, and Tom Brady, come on, it's you need to respect greatness. Not that LeBron doesn't have his own greatness. Don't ever get me wrong on that. LeBron is one of the best to ever pick up a basketball in the history of the world. However, you don't call this person a king of a city when they've done nothing, especially when a guy like Kobe built that city. Oh, and don't forget Magic. Oh, and don't forget the long list of acclaimed forever top 10 players in the games of basketball that are from Los Angeles. So LeBron hasn't done anything in a Lakers jersey yet, in my opinion. So I don't feel like he, in a sense, deserves such high lauding. I get, obviously, it makes sense. He's done a lot. He's a great player. But I think fans on both sides are a little bit overreactive, saying, let's spray paint over this. But at the same time, I don't think we need to be calling him the king of LA just yet. He hasn't won a game yet. Lonzo Ball has won more games than LeBron James in LA. So keep that in the back of your mind.
No, I agree with you. And part of me was that's kind of petty. But then I think if LeBron James, he would never do this. But if he went to Chicago, I'm a Bulls fan, I wouldn't ever think about him having he wouldn't be able to wear 23. But There would be no way he'd be even allowed to come close to wearing 23. No. There's just no way. I'm with Laker fans, as far as the King of LA, debacle and all that. I agree with you on that too. But another quick thing, some Madden. I don't know if you play any Madden, but some Madden ratings were released. A part of the 99 Club were Aaron Donald, Antonio Brown, two guys with Pittsburgh ties, of course. The Aaron Donald went to Penn Hills High School, went to University of Pitt, and Antonio Brown went to, of course, plays for the Steelers. So that's a little bit exciting. That's another step towards, what we're going to be talking about here soon is, football being back.
It's weird to think about it, too, because I feel like that lull from, after the NFL draft to maybe when OTAs open for just a little bit, people are still kind of excited about the NFL, and then you kind of hit that dead of summer break, usually the month of July or that last 2 weeks of June to mid to late July, and people are like, when is football coming back? Once the new Madden game starts getting talked about, once the preseason schedules are released and people start, planning what they're going to do, or, whatever, the after-game concerts start getting announced because we're getting close enough to start booking Kenny Chesney and Luke Bryant and all that other hula, whatever. It's starting to feel like football's back in the air. I drive by the local high schools now. Teams are out getting their end-of-summer workouts and, just the helmets on, the non-contact practices, but it's starting soon. We're starting to get back into that again, at least at all levels. So it's exciting to know that, I got to start thinking about what fantasy football draft leagues I'm going to be a part of, and, do I take a risk again on certain players? It's fantasy football's around the corner again too, so that's things to be excited about.
Yep, football in shorts, my friend. Football in shorts. It's not the most fun to cover, but it's can be fun to talk about. It's getting exciting.
True.
But yeah, one final headline, and this is a little personal. This is a little personal note that I just wanted to mention. My hometown, I'm from near Elmira, New York. They had a semi-pro hockey team, or actually a professional hockey team, the ECHL team for a long time. They went defunct, and they are coming back. So
hey, that's very exciting.
Nice. It's very nice for a small area, city of only maybe 7,000 to 10,000 people. So it's very exciting time for those from Elmira, New York.
That is really cool. Wow. What was the reason that they went away for him in the beginning?
Just lost the lease on the building. Lost the lease on the building, and they're back after a couple years of being defunct. They're back. It's awesome.
Well, good for them. Well, welcome back to the world of hockey. Then that'll be exciting. Maybe a little opportunity to get Jake Holmes on the microphone there for some broadcasting opportunities. You never know.
Yeah.
Got to speak it into being, I guess. Well, speaking of speaking it into being, one of the biggest phrases that has been uttered in the world of soccer recently is "It's coming home." And unfortunately, the train stopped on Wednesday, and it was derailed thanks to Mario Mandzukic, his Croatia's team, stepping up and beating England 2-1 in the semifinals of the World Cup. So now the final stage is set. France will take on Croatia on Sunday. Belgium and England will play for third place tomorrow on Saturday. It is... I don't know if many people would have put money on the 4 teams that ended up in the finals. I think France and Belgium were, I don't want to say were sure things, but I think those are the least surprising of the 4 teams that are there because of the talent that is on the roster. It's one of those things, and we talk about this all the time, Jake, even come Final Four time as well, too. Win a Kentucky, win a Kansas, win a team that you're like, okay, they're supposed to be here. Is there? It's hard to be surprised by it usually, right? You're like, well, in theory, yes, you should be here. So well done. Way to actually do what you were supposed to do.
No, I agree with you. But the thing is I was actually talking about this the other day, and I want your opinion on this. So obviously, Croatia was Croatia's a big surprise. You mentioned France and Belgium being the sure things. England and Croatia not being so much. Croatia literally has a population of less than New York City. So, do you put this into comparison as like one of the best like sports stories of all time, or based on their talent? And we knew that they had talent coming in. Does that kind of change your mind a little bit about it?
That's my big thing is that, and I love the people that try to make those arguments on the soccer world of it, being like, but Croatia is smaller than New York City. I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying in general, people will make arguments like that for like a Tunisia, like for a Senegal, for those other countries that are small. But you nailed it on the head. You, in a sense, answered your own question. The 2 of the midfielders that play for Croatia put on the jerseys of Real Madrid and Barcelona once they get off of Croatia's national team. Most of the strikers on that team play for top-flight clubs in Germany. So this is a team that's full of Premier League, of La Liga, of Ligue 1, of Bundesliga players. So despite where they all might go home to from a country perspective, they are doing exactly what, in a sense, they should be doing. This is that team that is loaded with enough talent that's never been able to finally put it all together, and now, sure enough, here they are. Kind of reminds me of like a Michigan from a couple of years ago when it was like, look, they've got a lot of talent. If they put it together, they should be a good team. And sure enough, Croatia, with the stars that they have, it's nice to see them. Granted, personally, I would have rather seen England because I think that's a better story, but I don't get to play the games. I just get to talk about it way up here in the cheap seats. I don't have any sort of pull on how that game goes. But I did find it interesting, though, because I watched most of this game at work. Sorry, not sorry. And I was able to really just kind of look at how England played after that amazing goal from Trippier on that free kick. And then you just kind of see Croatia sit and be like, all right, well, England had, I would say, another 2 to 3 really good chances, especially with that one that Harry Kane had, 0.2 yards away and hit off the post, off the goalkeeper and out. Like that's some weird stuff right there. And English soccer fans are probably rolling their eyes right now going, classic England. We couldn't even score from 2 feet away. But it's stuff like that where I saw England continue to kind of shoot themselves in the foot, even though Croatia, even though they didn't really do anything wrong, they just couldn't capitalize. And because they weren't capitalizing, you saw their level of confidence go down. You saw Croatia start to say, okay, we know what we need to do now. I also feel like, unfortunately, and this is not me being a bitter England fan, there should have been at least 2 or 3 sending offs in this game. The ref was far too lenient. Croatia was literally, that I remember saying this out loud to a coworker, I said, Croatia is going to bully their way to the World Cup final. And they did, because they honestly acted like the schoolyard bully for most of the game against England. They were throwing England players literally all over the field, and they barely got a single card held out to them, which I was thoroughly surprised on. There should have been at least 2 red cards handed out, at least one to Croatia's defender. I can't think of his name right now. That was, I felt, was playing one of the more dirty games of soccer I've ever witnessed. However, Apparently the ref didn't feel like that. The bribes from the Russian officials must have gone through. I don't know. Either way, once again, not a bitter England fan, just reporting the news. But it was a little frustrating to see the lack of refereeing. And I know that, as sports fans sometimes we say, just let them play, ref, let them play. This is a time where I would have rather the ref stepped in and been like, listen, you're going to really hurt somebody because you're playing like a fool. And that didn't happen, unfortunately, until it was almost too late.
Sure. No, I agree with you. As sports fans, like you said, we always say, like, let them play, but there's a limit. You know what I mean?
Exactly
like,
right.
There's a limit. It's like a lot of, like, I hate to bring hockey and I hate to bring two sports together, but like in hockey, it's very similar to soccer. They're both very dangerous sports.
Oh, yes.
They're both very dangerous. I mean, in soccer, you're running 8 miles a game as a midfielder, so
at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's a physically grueling game, and you're just letting anything happen. I just don't understand. But you mentioned a little bit of lax officiating and just not capitalizing on chances. What went wrong? Is there anything other than that went wrong for England on Wednesday afternoon?
I don't feel like there was any real issue. Sometimes you can look at a roster and you can look at the lineups and the substitutes that were made, and you can kind of diagnose it in that certain, why did the manager bring on a midfielder? He should have brought on a defender, or should have brought on this, should have brought on that. I don't really feel like there was anything else that England did that I was sitting there going, what the heck was that about? England also did not get a lot of shots on target, so I thought Croatia did a great job of kind of, in a sense, forcing a lot of really bad shots. So I got to take my hat after Croatia for that, because ultimately that's the name of the game, right? The team that scores the most points wins the game, and England did not convert on the chances that they had. Croatia did a great job of causing a lot of England mistakes, and some of those really just kind of come down to being able to convert. And it's so easy for us to sit here and talk about saying, well, how does Harry Kane miss from 3 yards away or 2 yards away? I've played soccer for 18 years at a high level. I know what it's like to be 2 feet from the goal and miss. It happens, and you can't explain it, and everybody looks at you like, what happened? And you look back at the team and you say, I don't know what happened. Okay, some weird thing just happened. It's going to happen in people's careers. It can't be defining to who you are. If we really want to still go back to it, if Chris Wondolowski scores against Belgium in the 2014 World Cup before extra time, we're not having this conversation, and Belgium is irrelevant, and the U.S. could have done who knows what. Irrelevant to the conversation. But, people, there are those misses that will stick out, and I'm sure everyone has them in every sport. But it's like, if you talk about the sitters, the missing the close goals, England had a couple opportunities, just didn't go their way. I was incredibly impressed by how they played, how fast some of those England players were as well, too. There was one that Raheem Sterling got a ball. He was on the midfield area, and he came all the way over to the far sideline. He beat a Croatian defender who had about a 3-yard head start on him to the ball, and then beat him once again as well, too, after he got the ball. So it was kind of remarkable to watch. But it's an uphill battle, but England should be proud of where they're at. France and Croatia are going to be a fun final to watch, in my opinion.
Sure. And so I want you to I'll start this question by saying no United States, obviously, this year, and Germany, you root for your heritage and you root for the country you live in, right? Then Germany was out. That's, my heritage. So I didn't watch a whole lot of this World Cup, admittedly. So, but, of course I followed it. I want you to preview this final for me and tell me what to look for.
I think you're going to see two teams in very different scenarios. You're going to see the next generation of soccer stars for France. That is one good thing to be excited about, because you have the Paul Pogbas, you have the Mbappés, you have the Griezmanns. The list goes on and on of young, incredible, starlet players for France. And then you're going to look at it the other side from Croatia. Like I said, you're going to look at the unpopular choice. You're going to look at the schoolyard bullies that may not be the fastest, still very, very talented players across the board, but they know that France is similar to kind of an England. France and England are very fast teams, and Croatia is not as fast, so Croatia is going to have to step up their level of physicality. France has had some moments of sheer brilliance this year, though, with either goals and or just it's funny because there's not many times in sports where you look at a pass that, even if it might not be completed in terms of the end result of like a touchdown or a basket or a goal, but the pass still gets completed, and you just go like, whoo, that was pretty. Like there's been passes that I've seen from the French national team this World Cup that I've never seen in the game of soccer before. That ball somehow slides perfectly in between two defenders from 60 yards away. There's literally 0.2 inches of space, and the ball boop right in there, and you put your hands up and you say, oh my gosh, we're watching some of the best ever to play this game. And I want in my heart, I want France to win this game because I feel like it would be a huge revelation for that national team. But at the same time, if we're going to step back and say, well, what's the better story? Croatia winning the World Cup is far the better story, in my opinion, and what a lot of journalists should be cheering for as well, too, because it's a good, quote-unquote, underdog story, even though they have a really good team, which is funny in this situation.
Sure, yeah. And one question before I get your actual, your pick for the game. So England and France play obviously very similar. So it's so tough to beat a similar team twice in a row.
Correct.
Croatia? Do you think Croatia has the ability to do so?
Well, and like I mentioned, I think that France and England are fast teams. Croatia got run ragged for 120 minutes, and they got two very well-timed, basically chips around Jordan Pickford to score their goals. So what does Croatia have left in the tank is going to be the real question. And now that France has had an extra day of rest, does that ultimately end up playing in favor of the French? I think it does, honestly. I think France has a little bit more of an opportunity, purely just looking at, if you match skill for skill, I think France is the better team across the board.
Sure. No, I agree, and that's why I think France will ultimately win this game. Just based on their young talent, their speed, and their athleticism. How about you, Baxter? Who do you got winning of the World Cup final?
Yeah, I'm going to have to join you on that stage as well, too. I think France ultimately ends up winning. It's hard to give a score prediction because final games can go so many different directions. It's like, oh, these are going to be two high-powered offensive teams at 0-0, and we go to penalty kicks after 120 minutes. You're like, come on. I really, really, really don't think that's going to be the case this time, like I said, because of the amount of speed and talent that is on the field. I think we'll at least have, I still think an extra time game is going to be the way this goes because that's more money, it's more people watching. So of course, I think France ultimately wins, but I think it's going to be 2-1. I think they'll be tied 1-1 after regulation, and France finds a winner sometime in extra time to ultimately take the trophy home, as it were.
Yeah, it's coming home, but it's coming home to France. So,
I know, missed it.
I agree with you, but yeah, it's just crazy, like how England, always seems to get so far, and they always seem to be a favorite, or at least one of the five as far as like Vegas odds are concerned, and they just don't get it done. It's unfortunate because it's of course it's such a great area for the sport, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we are going to run to a quick break. When we come back, the MLB All-Star rosters are done. Do you believe in Jesus, Jake? Because I do. I'm sorry. Jesus, that's what I should have said. Do we believe in Jesus? I have a couple of thoughts about that marketing campaign, plus the All-Star Game rosters that were announced. When we come back, you're listening to The Cheap Seats, presented by Squadcast.fm here on Public House Media. Welcome back to The Cheap Seats, presented by Squadcast.fm here on Public House Media. I'm Baxter Colburn, filling in for the illustrious Matt Coyne. We certainly miss you, Matt, on this episode, but I'm trying to harness my inner Yinzer as I'm talking with Jake Holmes this week, obviously, who is Matt's typical co-host. I honestly thought Matt was swearing at me the first time he called. Said, "Yeah, I think I'm a Yinzer." I'm like, "What? I'm sorry, what? What does that mean?" It's every area has this, slang term, I guess, of like how do you describe people. But still, I was like, I don't know if that's a real word. And he's like, "No, if you're from Pittsburgh, it is." I'm like, okay. But it's fine. It's fine. You already got your one token Pittsburgh reference in for the show, so that's it. You've hit your quota. So no more Pittsburgh for the rest of the show. Oh my goodness! All right, we want to do a quick walk through the teams that were selected. I keep wanting to say the NHL, the NBA. There's so many All-Star games out there, Jake. I'm losing count of which one it is, and it's in a sport that I don't care that much about, if I'm being totally honest. No, it's the MLB, the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, presented by MasterCard. There we go. I'll just read it off the screen. That might be easier. It's going to be played on a Tuesday in Washington, D.C., which is a little weird, at 7:30 p.m. So that's this coming Tuesday for the MLB All-Star Game. The full roster and full breakdown is great. There's a ton of players on there. Good for those players that made it. I wanted to talk briefly though, and unless there's a specific player you wanted to hit on, about the marketing campaign to help promote Jesus Aguilar from the Milwaukee Brewers to get that final vote winner. The marketing campaign from the Brewers and Brewers fans were, "We believe in Jesus," but obviously if you read it, the way it's supposed to, "We believe in Jesus." I don't know how I feel about that, Jake. I was a little taken aback by it. Not that it was a bad thing, like I said, and we were joking about this off the air. It might have been a good form of dual marketing, but I mean, it's hard to. I mean, how do you not promote a guy? It's his name. I mean, that's what his parents named him. They named him Jesus. But how do you? I mean, I don't know. I felt like it was a little weird, personally.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and there almost has to be another way that you can do that, in my opinion. I mean,
right?
there almost has to be another, they have, cool hashtags, like Brandon Belt. That's who I voted for the final vote, I mean, that's who I thought should have gotten it, was Brandon Belt. But, they had, belt your way into the All-Star game or something.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's something like that's cool. I just don't like how they brought religion into it. I just don't. And it's I mean, I might people might disagree with me. I don't care. But but yeah, I mean,
don't at me.
His name's Jesus. It's spelled obviously the same. I just don't like it. I mean, there's just it's just a little cringeworthy to me. Some people have that, and I do. So.
No, and I would agree with you on that too. I mean, I feel like we could have done fly like an Aguilar or something like that. Fly like an eagle, like Aguilar is Spanish for eagle. There's other ways that we could have gone about doing this, but I don't know what the thought process was. I'm sure they were probably thinking oh, okay, this will just get really good search optimization results as well too. If people are typing, do you believe in Jesus, or I believe in Jesus? I don't know. But, I mean, it's kind of a cool thing because I've seen people that have had signs in their yard that say, "We believe in Jesus," but if you're not looking close enough for, the little, I can't even think of the official, what is that, the word for the little, tick over the S?
It's been a long time since I've taken
my middle
Spanish.
school, high school Spanish is failing me, but, if you're not looking close enough, it's kind of oh, that's kind of a cool, declaration, but, like I said, I don't know the reasoning behind it. I'd be curious to talk to somebody in the Brewers marketing department and say, "So, tell me your motivation for this." But he got in. It worked. Enough people believe in Jesus or Jesus, rather, to allow him to get in. So good for him to get in, I suppose, and we'll kind of see what transpires from there. But did you have any quick passing thoughts at all about these All-Star rosters, Jake, from the players that were selected or maybe weren't selected?
Well, geez, I can tell you right now, the American League might win this game by 80. I mean,
at least.
you look at this team. There's just zero chance. I think that they lose. Not that it matters or anything, of course. World's home field advantage isn't even determined by this anymore. So Wilson Ramos, Jose Abreu, Jose Altuve, Jose Ramirez, and Manny Machado. That's the infield. Their outfield is absolutely insane. My opinion is each one of these players in the outfield are the best player in the league at their specific positions. Mookie Betts, Mike Trout, Aaron Judge. how do you get any better than that? I mean, where do you put this team, like, as far as their lineup? I mean, do you have Aaron Judge hitting like a leadoff? Like, I mean, like, seriously, he's hitting 2-hole for the Yankees. It's just unbelievable how good the American League is, and really, some news that broke just 2 days ago. On Wednesday.
It was 2 years ago. I think it's. I don't think it's broken. It's not broken.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Just 2 days ago. I mean, that the Yankees are interested in Machado, and if that's the case,
Why not?
Give them the World Series. Just give them the World Series already. But like the American League, anyways, is just a lot better right now than the National League. It's very similar to the Western Conference and the NBA. But yeah, the only thing is maybe their pitching isn't as good. I mean, Kluber or Severino, I would start Severino for the American League, but I mean, Scherzer's probably going to get the start for the National League. That might be the only position where they're any better. It's just crazy how good the American League roster is, and I'm not saying the National League roster is bad. It's just the American League
not
is
as good.
unbelievable.
That's just the reality of it. Yeah, these are definitely all the players that are at such a high quality level, but it's like, oh boy. It's interesting. I'm really curious to watch and see where this, I mean, it's so hard to judge a game in a sense that doesn't mean anything, but it does. I mean, it's more so for the experience for the fans and for the players to kind of hang out with their buddies and smack a baseball around for a couple hours. Like, cool. I'm more interested in, the Legends softball, baseball charity game, and the World. I think the USA versus the World game is going to probably be pretty entertaining as well too. So there's a lot of cool things, plus the Derby as well too, which Aaron Judge is not a part of. So that's another big thing that I'm sure folks will be keeping their eye on throughout the course of this All-Star game. So it's hard to get excited in my opinion about it because I'm not a huge baseball fan, but I know many folks do love it, and it's a cool experience to go to. And maybe I will go to one at some point, but it's not the top of my sports bucket list at this moment, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I would also like to go, eventually, but I mean, there's not really any reason to go, really. I mean, it's like it's a meaningless game. The tickets are outrageous because I was looking because it's in DC.
You're like, I can make that happen.
I was like, I can make that happen. It's like, no, not for $1,000 for 2 tickets. I can't.
Yeah, and that's the cheap seats. That's outside the stadium. That's it's like,
exactly.
Come on.
Exactly. So yeah, I don't really know how I feel about it. I think that All-Star games, anyways, are kind of cheesy.
Agreed.
Just because, and it's like it's in the middle of summer. Like I mean, these guys are supposed to be going at it like right now. They're trying to fight for playoff spots. We're just over halfway into the season. But yeah, I wanted to ask you too. While we're on the show, how do you feel about each team getting at least one All-Star?
I think I like the idea because I think it kind of helps promote the team, and it's that's one of the things I don't think we do well in certain other sports is that we always you're representing the league. You're not representing 6 or 7 teams, right? You're trying to help bring about the entire league as you're celebrating baseball in this situation. You're celebrating basketball. You're celebrating soccer in those specific sports that have the All-Star games. And the teams, like I looked at the MLS roster because they have their All-Star game coming up soon too against Juventus, and the starting 11 at least is, I think there's 5 Atlanta players on the starting 11. Does Atlanta have one of the best rosters? Yes, absolutely. Is the All-Star game in Atlanta? Yes, it is. But really, 5 of the starting 11 are all going to be Atlanta players. Like that seems a bit much to me personally. I think that there should be a better way in certain sports of at least trying to highlight. You're trying to showcase the league as a whole, and sometimes, I mean, the team that I support in MLS only has 1 player going. And I'm excited for that 1 player, but like he's still going to be there. He's still representing that team, which helps increase brand awareness, which helps increase for fans. Like, say, hey, we have a guy. Our team is there. We're being represented at the big stage. So I think that having at least 1 player for every team that earns it. I think you need to take the best player from the team. Don't just grab random Joe off the bench and say you're going to the All-Star game. Good luck. Like it needs to be a well thought out selection of who that player is.
Sure. No, I agree with you. I think like for certain, like for instance, I'll tell you, sorry for another Pittsburgh reference, but Felipe Vasquez now, like, I don't think that he was deserving of going to an All-Star game. I just don't. He's the only Pirates have to have an All-Star. I don't think that Vasquez is their best player. You know, I mean, of course it's fan voting, but at the same time, it gets old seeing 10 Seattle Seahawks from a couple years ago on the NFC Pro Bowl roster.
Too many.
Every year the Patriots have like 10. So, yeah, I agree with you. It gets a little old to see you're representing the league, not just a couple teams. We see these guys enough. Like, we see 10 New England Patriots play 5 times on national broadcasts a year, you know, so we see these guys enough. I like being able to see, you know, like a Patrick Corbin, you know, for pitcher for the Arizona Diamondbacks. You don't get to see a lot of Diamondback games unless they come to your hometown and your market has them to broadcast them.
Exactly.
So it's nice to see those kinds of players.
Yep, I would agree with that as well, too. All right, we're going to run to another break. When we come back, we have our quick lists of the 5 NFL players that need to have a good season. Otherwise, they might be looking for a new location after the end of the 2018 NFL season. We'll be back with more on the Cheap Seats presented by Squadcast.fm after this. Welcome back to the Cheap Seats, presented by Squadcast.fm here on Public House Media. I'm Baxter Colburn, filling in for Matt Coyne this week on the Cheap Seats, and I'm joined, of course, by Jake Holmes, as he is always here on Fridays. Jake, we've had a pretty good show so far, and now we get to roll into the segment that I think I've been looking forward to the most this week, and it is talking about 5 NFL offensive players that need to have a good 2018 campaign. Otherwise, they might be looking for possibly a new team, or in general, there's a lot on. It's really a lot at stake for these 5 players for both of us that we've come up with. But I'm excited for these lists. I think there's going to be some surprises. I want to get it going right off the bat. And this player is. I want to be clear. This player that I'm first wanting to say was injured for part of last season. So keep that in the back of your mind. So don't completely jump on me here for leading off with this guy. But I want to start with Odell Beckham Jr. because I feel that because of how poorly he did play when he did play last year, plus the injury, plus the off-field issues that he had leading in this offseason as well, too, he needs to take the focus back off of what his mistakes were off-field, even on-field as well, too, and really start to reinvent himself. The Giants are in this position right now that they've added Saquon Barkley. Eli Manning is still a very good quarterback, and the Giants are doing a lot to really sort of revamp and redo who this team is as a whole. And I think if OBJ can have a good campaign, not only will fantasy owners be happy, but Giant owners will be happy, or Giant fans as a whole will be even happier. But I think if he fails again, we're going to be really having a hard time starting to justify this one-handed legacy that undoubtedly has caused a lot of drama for OBJ and his career thus far.
Yeah, and that's a good point, you know, as far as, like, you know, talking about Saquon, because they have another skill player now that they can really kind of, you know, center their game around, you know, center that offensive game around. So yeah, I agree. I like the pick with Odell. But I'm gonna go with a quarterback. I'm gonna be cheap. I'm gonna steal one here. I'm gonna go with Tyrod Taylor, quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. He's got Baker Mayfield right behind him, right on his heels. Cold weather city doesn't always work out well for you know, athletic quarterbacks. Didn't work well for Robert Griffin III in Cleveland. Of course, there aren't really a whole lot of quarterbacks that work out in Cleveland. But Tyrod, especially with the number 1 overall pick, right on his heels. Tyrod, he needs to have a big year if he wants to stay in Cleveland.
I'm pretty sure you and I were not alive the last time a quote-unquote good quarterback played for the Cleveland Browns. I can't even think of who one would be. Yeah, exactly. I think Jim Brown hadn't had the team named after him yet, or it's like, come on. But yeah, Tyrod Taylor's an interesting player. I think he's a fun player to watch, but Baker Mayfield also trying to think if he can maybe be that answer for what they're trying to do over there in Cleveland. Next guy on my List was hoping to not only use his last name as motivation, but also I think the team is hopeful as well too. Andrew Luck is hoping to have a whole newfound luck with his injury. He hasn't touched a football field in over a year and a half, and we've seen how badly the Indianapolis Colts miss him. This is a heavily debated topic throughout the NFL season. When a star quarterback goes down, does your team, regardless of who it is, have a substantial enough backup quarterback to actually not completely blow your season up? If you're Green Bay, the answer is no. If you are Indianapolis, clearly the answer is no as well too. And the list goes on and on and on for teams that if they got rid of. I really don't think the Patriots are going to be good if Brian Hoyer's the quarterback, honestly. So, it kind of worries you a little bit there if Tom Brady were to ever go down. But Andrew Luck needs to get back on the football field. He needs to rejuvenize and reinvigorate the city of Indianapolis. I was just there a couple of weeks ago, and you could tell the city is hungry for the Colts to be good again. Looking up at the banners when I was inside Lucas Oil Stadium as well, too. Andrew Luck has helped build a good thing that Peyton Manning obviously founded, but really this team needs to be competitive again because the teams in their division have all of a sudden realized, oh, we're actually kind of good at football. The Titans, the Jaguars, the Texans, these teams have all come out of nowhere. Seemingly those were always the Colts' whipping block for so many years, and now suddenly there is a new couple of horses in town, and the Colts are kind of looking to see if they can get back on the saddle if Andrew Luck is healthy. If he's not, this is going to be another long season for Colts fans, unfortunately.
Yeah, and with the Colts, they had so many good years. They had the one year where Peyton's neck injury. It was his last year there.
Yeah.
Went 2-14. That was really that year. I think Orlovsky got some time in.
He
Dan
did.
Orlovsky.
There was
got
some other
really
old quarterback name. I can't think of.
Was it Hasselbeck?
Yes, I'm pretty positive it was.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah,
Matt.
that
was one of the last hurrahs for the Hasselbacks.
Yeah, rough year, but yeah, I mean, and they were even good with a couple years with Andrew. So, but I'm gonna stick with a quarterback that's right in that age range, and it's Jameis Winston, quarterback of the Buccaneers.
Yeah,
I'll tell you exactly how it is. The guy he's not a good person. He's not a good person, and his off the field issues just continue to emerge.
Agreed.
Out for the first 3 games of the season. He's got some talent. He's an okay quarterback, but stop being a terrible person. Grow up. You're 26 years old now. Grow up and be a leader on that team, because the Buccaneers, other than him, are ready to win some football games. He needs to get ready as well.
And I would have to echo your same sentiments about him as well, too. He was a player that I have never once had any respect for. I didn't like him when he was in college. I didn't like the fact that he stole crab legs from a Publix. I mean, there's nothing that has ever been credible about Jameis Winston that I was like, he's a good guy. No, he's gotten himself into too many off-field issues. And when people talk about you as a professional, first about what you haven't even done at your job, you're doing something wrong. If I was committing a lot of crimes outside of my current workspace, no one would be asking me, Baxter's a great performer at work. However, no, they would go right to the issues off field, and that's what's going on right now for Winston as well, too. Tampa Bay is playing with fire, and I hope that doesn't end up coming back to really burn what I think is a fairly decent Tampa Bay Buccaneers team in the long run.
Yeah, I agree. And I have some personal vendettas. I've met Jameis Winston many times.
Really?
From his days at Florida State. He was, in the ACC, played Pitt. I don't have a whole lot of good things to say about him, so I'll just settle down.
Fair enough. The next guy on my list is we're talking about the 5 players that we each believe on the offensive side of the ball in the NFL need to have a good 2018. Jordy Nelson is another one, because in 2017, Jordy Nelson was dealt a very bad hand. He had to deal with Aaron Rodgers getting injured and then Brett Hundley taking over and seemingly forgetting everything he's ever been taught about how to throw a football accurately. And we saw the demise of Jordy Nelson plummet. And apparently Brett Hundley only ever knows how to throw the football to Devontae Adams. So I'm really curious what kind of moves forward with this as a whole for the team. But my big question, and we've seen this in the past, Jake, is that when a wide receiver leaves the Packers after it was with Favre or it was with now Aaron Rodgers, do they actually still make an impact for the team that they move to? The answer so far has been no. Greg Jennings was the biggest one. He really cashed in with Green Bay, and then he went to Minnesota. He was a complete flop. He went to Miami. He was a pretty big flop there as well, too. This is a consistent problem that we've seen with a lot of former Packer wide receivers. I like to think Jordy Nelson is a great player. He's got David Carr throwing him the ball now. Plus, he's got Amari Cooper and others around him as well, too, to kind of help keep him accountable. It's a similar receiving core, I would say, to what the Packers had with Cobb and Devontae and some of those other young receivers. However, I'm worried, though, because we know that a guy like Aaron Rodgers and a guy like Brett Favre, they throw people open. They throw wide receivers balls that are going to basically impale themselves within their hands, and it's hard to almost drop them at times too. So I'm wondering what Jordy Nelson has to do. He really has a lot of pressure on his back to be a good immediate contributor for what Oakland has this coming season.
I agree, and that's the thing with Oakland is, they're a team that's looking to get back. Because I'll tell you, not last year, the year before, when they were in the playoffs, Derek Carr got hurt week 16, 15, something like that. They were a legitimate contender. I mean, they were a really good team. Of course, Connor Cook or whatever, the kid from Michigan State, came in and blew it against the Texans. But yeah, that was a really good team, and that's only a year removed. They've got some pieces there where they can build off, and one of those pieces is my guy that I'm going to be talking about as far as having a good season. That's Amari Cooper. They spent big time draft pick on him. He was a top 10 pick, I believe, and yeah, I mean, he's supposed to be one of the top receivers in the league. I mean, he's got the body for it. He's got the skill. He's got the talent, and he's got the quarterback. They've got the AC/DC connection, the whole marketing campaign and everything. We know we've talked about all the marketing campaigns already. but yeah, I mean, he's got to step up, especially with what they have. They brought in Martavis Bryant, a very similar player, a downfield guy, and of course Jordy Nelson as well. So Amari Cooper's got to step up if he wants to stay in Oakland, and if the Raiders want to get back to where they were a couple years ago.
I would agree with that as well, too. Here is my fourth person staying in the wide receiver camp. He's not on a team yet, but I feel like he will be by the time preseason rolls around. Dez Bryant is in this position that he needs to have a good campaign. I feel like he wouldn't have lost his job in Dallas if he was a good wide receiver / good person, but that's a different topic. Anyway, Dez Bryant is desperate for a new beginning, for an opportunity to showcase what many folks fell in love with him for way back when he first came into the league, was his ability to make the hard catches and to show up and put great numbers out on the field every single week. Whoever Dez ends up signing for, he needs to fly out of the gate with that same production. Otherwise, we're going to probably start to see this Dez Bryant legacy really starting to trickle off and really starting to be this gray area of how good is he actually. So he's definitely a player to watch, in my opinion, in 2018.
Yeah, I don't know. I like watching Dez play. As far as, just like you said, I like watching him play, but I just can't. There's just something about him I just can't quite get over. But
maybe because he was a Cowboy for so long, it's just hard to shake that vendetta.
Yeah, maybe that was it. I don't know, but speaking of a guy that I have a vendetta for, and it's because he beat my Pittsburgh Steelers twice. It wasn't him that did it; it was his defense. Blake Bortles, Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback. There were some talks about like even Teddy Bridgewater this offseason. I mean, they were just only a 10-point blown lead from going to the Super Bowl last year. It's a really good team. The Jaguars have a solid bunch. I don't know how their defense will be this year, because they lost Paul Plesney in the middle. He retired. But Blake Bortles in particular is the weak link on that team. He's got to be better or he's going to be gone, in my opinion, because they already kind of wanted to get rid of him earlier this year. So
true.
Blake's my 4.
They were a Tom Brady away from a Super Bowl. How sad.
Exactly.
All right, my last one here as we finish up this segment has to do with every single quarterback that made a transition this offseason. And what that means is, I'm talking about Case Keenum, I'm talking about Kirk Cousins and Alex Smith, those three specifically. I know there were others that kind of shifted around. We don't really care as much about those. But those three specifically are all put under immense pressure because of how overhyped the quarterback market was this year. Kirk Cousins does not deserve the type of contract that he got. Alex Smith, even Case Keenum as well, until you talk about guys that kind of cashed in while they were hot and got out of Dodge. I think there were some mistakes that were made personally in all three of those situations. However, those three really are going to have a lot of pressure on them, not only from a team perspective, but even from a fantasy perspective as well, too, because they're being highly touted. Those three are really being touted as possible options for you to really find good success, especially Kirk Cousins, now that he has some fun tools to throw to over there in Minnesota.
Oh, thanks for the segue into Kirk. I appreciate that. That's my guy.
Okay.
I'll highlight one of those quarterbacks that were on the move. I got Kirk. I'm a closet Vikings fan. Admittedly, I'm sorry. I just grew up with them. But yeah, Kirk comes in getting huge money that the Redskins would never, that the Redskins wouldn't give him. And he's inheriting a very good team. That's a very good team. They're going to have Dalvin Cook back. Really, my opinion, it's Super Bowl or bust for the Vikings. The defense is incredible. The wide receivers are great. They've got 3 running backs that they could go to pretty much at any time. Kirk Cousins has to be great, or else, Viking country, he won't be gone because of the contract that he signed.
Right.
But Viking country will certainly give it to him if he doesn't at least win a division or win 11 to 12 games this year.
And I would agree with that as well, too. If you have any comments about what we just talked about, feel free to send our Facebook page, The Cheap Seats by Public House Media, a message over on the Facebook side of things. We have one more segment in store for you. We've got our weekly poll question, and we're going to play a game called Who Said It? Or Who Said That? Or however we want to call it. I don't know. It's Jake Holmes, Baxter Colburn here on The Cheap Seats, presented by Squadcast.fm here on Public House Media. Stay with us. Welcome back to The Cheap Seats, presented by Squadcast.fm. I'm Baxter Colburn, alongside Jake Holmes, filling in for Matt Coyne this week. Great to be back in The Cheap Seats. Always fun time to talk about sports, of course. As we get ready for our final segment of the show, a reminder to check out The Cheap Seats by heading over to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and wherever you get your podcast from. We are going to be on Spotify shortly from what all information has been leaked to us, so we're excited about that. So make sure to keep an eye out on whatever platform you like to get your podcasts on. The Cheap Seats will be on all of them. All right, Jake, this last segment, we're going to be playing a short little game and getting to our poll question. Let's do the game here. I'm excited. So we're going to be playing a game called Who Said It? And it can either be, I guess, we'll give the quote to each other of a person, an athlete, someone that said something in this last week, and you can either guess who that player was and or what the context of it is, if you'd like to go that route as well, too. So why don't you go first, sir?
Okay, so I'm going to start out with, this is in regards to a team that he recently signed with, by the way.
Okay.
Team weren't just my first love. They were my first human memory.
Ooh, is that LeBron James talking about the Lakers?
You're very close. Big time free agent in the other sport that was signing free agents, John Tavares.
Oh, okay. I was also wondering if maybe that could have been the Ronaldo signing with Juventus as well too, because I know he has. I know he also has a lot of admiration for Juventus as well too. So that could have gone a lot of different ways. But who did Tavares sign it with again?
Toronto Maple Leafs.
Okay. All right. My first one has to do with a NBA player talking about the additions to his conference. He says, it's going to be fun for fans. The West obviously got stronger with LeBron, but you still got to beat us.
I'm going to say it's somebody from Golden State. I'm going to say Steph.
That's correct. Yep, and that was when he was asked about LeBron joining the Western Conference.
Cool. Nicely
done. Your turn.
Thank you. All right, so this is in regards to his Madden rating. So I just gave you the sport.
Okay.
I got cut, and I'm a 93.
Is that Dez?
You're close. It's another guy that that's on the move, Tyrann Mathieu.
Oh, that's right. I always forget that he got cut. That's funny, though.
Yeah, it's really weird. Really weird stuff.
Where did he end up again? He's in Houston.
Houston, yeah.
Golly. For only a year, too, right?
I believe so. And I remember Pittsburgh could have afforded it.
I think Green Bay could have too.
Yeah. Oh man.
Not going to talk about it. Anyway, this was the GM of a basketball team talking about a couple of players, a couple of things that have been going on. Magic Johnson and I had a conversation, and LeBron echoed this sentiment. I think to try to play the Warriors at their own game is a trap.
Basketball GM, you said?
Indeed, yep.
Danny Ainge?
No, it was Rob Pelinka, actually, of the Lakers, talking about the different approach in building a team around LeBron. So he said that they're basically not trying to match the Warriors in what they're doing. They're trying to play their game because they know if they tried to match the Warriors, they would lose very quickly.
Sure. Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So my last one here, it was in regards to a recent birthday that he had. So I don't pay attention to my age. I'm feeling great. I'm healthy, and I'm in great shape. I feel as long as I have that, I can continue to be productive.
Can you give me the sport?
Football. Yep.
Recent birthday. So he's got to be a little bit older, obviously. Was it Tommy?
It was actually Antonio Brown.
Oh, because he just turned 30, right?
Just turned 30, I think Wednesday.
I think you're right, yeah. Huh. I wasn't sure. I was like, why is he answering questions about how old he is? He's 30. Calm down. God, sports are so weird. Well, I'm going to keep this last one in Pittsburgh. This is another player on Pittsburgh talking about a recent meeting that he had with another athlete. He said, I thought I would never meet God while on Earth. Today, that changed.
Oh, geez.
I guess you'll have to kind of think about what person in another sport kind of refers to himself as God.
Okay, so I could be way off here. I'm going to say that it was Juju Smith-Schuster.
You're right about that, yes.
Okay. About LeBron?
No, about meeting Zlatan Ibrahimovic from the Galaxy.
Oh, that's right. Okay, all right. Yeah, yep, you're right. Yeah. Good,
yep.
Good
There's
point,
a picture of the two of them standing in the tunnel somewhere, holding an Ibrahimovic jersey, all signed and everything. But I thought that was kind of funny. All right. So here we go. So those are three on either side of us. So as we wrap things up here, obviously, we have our poll question. I'm curious to get your thoughts about this, Jake. We're going to go with, are All-Star Games worth watching? In your opinion, do you feel like All-Star Games are worth watching, sir?
Nope. I don't.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Yep, I don't. I mean, I can get in, like, since the NHL changed it to a 3-on-3 tournament with each division, I guess I get into that. Like, that's a little bit fun. And I love, like, the Home Run Derby, the NBA, like, All-Star Saturday Night in the NBA.
Sure.
Like, those are a lot of fun because of skills, actually. But there's no defense. There's not really anything on the line as far as the game's concerned. I can watch a lot of them. I watch a lot of them, so I don't need that one.
Fair enough. I would agree with you on that as well, too. I'm definitely kind of in that camp of... I usually watch the MLS All-Star Game, but that's about it. Otherwise, I don't bother with any of the other ones. So I think both of us are voting that way. But let us know. Head over to the Cheap Seats Facebook page and cast your vote so we can see where people stand. Because I know some people do actually enjoy the All-Star Games in certain sports, so we'll have to see. But Jake, always a pleasure, sir. I appreciate you taking time to help me guide my way through trying to live up to Matt Coyne and his reputation as a host. So it was a pleasure and an honor to have time with you today, sir. Thank you.
Awesome. Oh, of course. Anytime you want to come on, we're more than happy to have you.
I appreciate that. And a big thanks to all of you as listeners as well, too, for tuning in. You can find the Cheap Seats by heading over to Public House Media to search for them in your favorite podcast app, or head to thephmedia.com, or search for the Cheap Seats on Facebook as well, too. For Jake Holmes, I'm Baxter Colburn, and for Matt Coyne, of course, as well, too. Big special thanks for listening in to this episode of the Cheap Seats. Christian and John will have a full recap of the 2018 FIFA World Cup and many other things on the Monday edition of the Cheap Seats, so make sure to tune in at that time at 6 a.m. Central Time. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time up here in the Cheap Seats.